Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock. I call to order the East Lyme Planning Commission regular meeting this Tuesday, January 13th. Welcome to all. I'd just like to quickly do a shout out to the Mills family. Kevin's our alternate. Him and his wife had a baby girl, Lucy. So congratulations to them. They won't be here tonight, but that's super good news for them. First order is to call alternate up, I believe. So, Bill, do you want to come up and join us?
Absolutely. There's nothing I'd rather do.
Thank you.
Sure about.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
It'll change 5 minutes in.
When Bill's seated, we'll take roll call. Starting with you.
Roll call.
Go ahead, sit.
Just say my name?
Yep.
Okay. I'm good with this. Bill Delaney.
Rich Gordon.
Tim Leducer.
Brian Bombeck.
Nina Franco.
Nick Benapace.
All right. Excellent. So next we'll have the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'll have a call for public delegations. Public delegations is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission about certain matters, items, referrals, or applications subject to a decision by the commission. A public hearing or in litigation may not be discussed. During delegations, the members of the commission will not directly answer questions or make comments. So, do we have anybody who would like to speak?
Hello, I'm Joshua Kasky, East Lyme, Connecticut, 1 Grimm's Way. I just wanted to speak about the importance of affordable housing in East Lyme. In East Lyme, last year and the year before, we saw how the lack of affordable housing has impacted our community with the attempted eviction of the residents at Windward Village. Many of them I spoke to attempted to find affordable housing because they didn't want to deal with a despicable landlord. However, they found that those affordable housing units in their community had a 4 to 5 year waiting list. So they were forced to stay in their residence that they were able to afford, but they endured a lot of stress. And while they were eventually able to solve their issue, at least temporarily, they continue to face stress from the potential conversion to condominiums of their residences, and they are therefore continued to the threat of possible eviction and possible homelessness even. So I think when we make decisions on affordable housing, it's important to remember how they impact our community. They impact our community because they give our teachers, they give our seniors, they give our public works officials, they give our firefighters a place to live. This is this affordable housing that people talk about. It's not only for people below the poverty line. It's also for the teachers who make $50,000 a year on their first year in East Lyme. It's also here for the firefighters. They also struggle to afford a place to live. So thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Anybody else? Alrighty. We'll move on to reports. Communications. I don't think we have any. About zoning liaison, did anybody go to the meeting
No, I don't think anyone here did. I do owe you a liaison schedule,
Yeah.
so I'll
Gotta
get
get
that to
that
you
just-
ASAP.
To see who's up next on that. Thank you. Do we have an ex officio today, Cindy?
No, Cindy couldn't make it, so I have an email from her, so I can just report on her behalf. She won't be able to make it. She is going to watch it online. Hi, Cindy. Her ex officio report really only stated that they approved the electronic ticketing cameras. There'll be more meetings on that in the selectman's office, I'm sure. And they discussed the cell tower placement, and I believe there's going to be a public hearing about that coming down the pipeline. So that's all from her.
Thank you. Planning Director, Gary, anything for us?
Nothing for you at this time?
Okay. Subcommittees, we don't have any activity on that. I'm just going to speak a little about that next. So I just have a few notes here. We have, Gary's looking at the yearly training that's required by state statute. And then we're also looking at new member indoctrination. We encourage anybody who's new that has any questions at all about anything to forward those on to Gary or myself. Feel free to ask any questions. I know this is confusing when you get going. There's a lot of stuff to look at and there's a lot of stuff to learn, so please feel free to reach out anytime. We have ordered new nameplates for Bill and Michelle. We have I just want to throw this out here, we got to start talking about subcommittees, especially for affordable housing. The next revision is due in 2028, which isn't very far away. So in the next few meetings, I'd like to discuss getting the subcommittee together. We need to look at this new House legislation, that 8002, that discusses affordable housing. So there's a lot of things that have changed, things that are going on that we need to look at. So better to get going on that early than wait. So more to follow on that. So that's all I have on that. As far as approval of meeting minutes for December 9th, does anybody have any comments before I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes? We have the minutes in our package.
Yes.
Anybody have any comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 6-0, Gary. Then we'll move on to the minutes of December 16th. Any discussion on that? That was our special meeting to
Yeah,
have
there's
elections.
just one issue I had. Tom Fitting was not at the meeting, so we could, I guess, take his name off of people in attendance. They misspelled my last name, that's all right.
Okay.
I will point out that it also lists Rich Gordon still as the secretary
Was it?
in the minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll change that to Tim.
I appreciate
Okay.
Rich does a great job with minutes, but yeah.
Okay. Good comments. Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, no, I make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
My second?
All right, let's take a vote. All in those favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 6-0, Gary. All right, now let's move on to the meat of the agenda tonight, public hearing. Take it away, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the commission, members of the public. Paul Garrity for the applicant tonight. Mr. Chairman, tonight I have with me Attorney Tor Holt from New London, who we have been consulting with on this matter. Also with me is Tim May, our professional engineer. Mr. Harney had intended to be here tonight. He flew up from North Carolina, but he's very ill, apparently, probably has the flu, and is self-isolating, and I'll give him a gold star for that, at least, but he was planning on presenting and reading a few of the documents that responded into the record, so at the appropriate time, I will undertake to do that. And Attorney Anthony Novak, who represents the East Lyme Land Trust. Just as a procedural matter, I know there are a number of members of the public here tonight. I want to make it clear for the record to the commission and the chair that to the extent they provide testimony tonight, I want the opportunity to cross-examine anyone who testifies tonight. I understand, as the commission knows, it has to go through the chair, but at the last meeting, there were some comments about reliance that people had made on certain things, and I think that renders that fair game for me to ask questions as to what exactly they may have done relative to any claims of reliance that this parcel is dedicated open space. I'll also make clear, too, that I understand for the commission that this is a political football. It has been sitting undeveloped for years, but there were a number of changes which you'll hear about tonight in terms of re-subdivision of this property and how the property ended up being remaining land of KSK Associates as opposed to open space. And I'll put that out as a teaser, but we intend to get into that and demonstrate through the minutes of the selectmen's meetings and the prior re-subdivision applications exactly what occurred. The only other thing, the other item I would ask is if there's been any reviews, staff, or communications to either Mr. Gaishel or to any of the commission members since the last meeting. I haven't received anything. I just want to make sure that.
So I'll go on record as I finished a memo today. So I have a copy. I can get you a hard copy. I thought you had copies and you don't have them.
No, I have it in my email.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody's in the building where I can make copies, but I can get you a copy of it.
In order of our presentations tonight, my introduction, and then it'll be Mr. Novak, and then myself presenting both Mr. Harney's and what I had intended to provide to the commission. I have a memorandum of law that I want to submit to that. I don't have copies for every individual commission member, but it's relatively straightforward in terms of that it addresses 3 issues. The first issue is relative to some comments that were made at one of the earlier meetings, I believe by Chairman Bomback, relative to his concern over the process and that he wasn't necessarily thrilled with it. I'm paraphrasing there. And also to a comment that one of the administrative staff made to someone who was inquiring about this property, and that was, as I've been told, I wasn't present, so I'll caveat it that way, but that this application is never going to get approved. I'm not saying that that was something that was true. I certainly hope it's not, but it raises the issue of whether there's predetermination or bias, and as you know, you have to keep an open mind on this. The fact that people may not like the process doesn't mean that that is a reason in the end to deny an application. You have to look at the application on its merits. And I understand that some decisions are hard, but that's what this commission has an obligation to do, to make the hard decisions. The other issue in the memorandum is the issue of conveyance of real property in here. As this commission knows from the prior hearings, both the public hearing and then our earlier informal meetings with this commission, this property was never conveyed by a deed. And you'll be presented with the original, the 1998 subdivision open space regulations, which set forth 3 requirements in order to have an effective conveyance of open space to that. And this gets to the memo that Attorney Carey submitted dated June 3rd, 2025. In his memo, he acknowledges that this land was not transferred. He had not looked at the 1988 subdivision regulations at the time he wrote that memo, and wasn't sure how to respond to what the requirements were for the 1988 subdivision regulations of open space. And I can tell you, because we went and looked through the files, and the 1988 open space regulations had 3 requirements in order to effectively create open space. And this is under section 10-3 on page 54 of the 88 regulations, conveyance of open space. 1, a deed in perpetuity to the town of East Lyme after all improvements have been completed. 2, deeded to the homeowners association within the subdivision upon terms and conditions as approved by the commission, which will protect the public welfare and assure the continued use of the open space for intended purposes. Copy of the homeowner's deed and the bylaws of the homeowners association should be submitted to the application, or submitted with the application for subdivision. And 3, open space may be reserved for common use or ownership of all property owners within the subdivision by covenants as approved by the commission in deeds. All 3 of those requirements were not satisfied in 1988 when this subdivision in its conceptual format came before the zoning commission and came before the planning commission. You'll hear more tonight as to why those weren't met, and it's because the subdivision changed during that period of time, as did the open space that was tendered to the town. One of the other issues that I wanted, this is a video from the town's website of the, just look at the letter, I wrote it on here, August 12th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. That was prior to the actual formal hearing. This has some commentary in there regarding to what the real issue was before this commission. It's obviously the open space. I think Mr. Gaishel, and I wrote that in my notes, at 1 hour and 59 minutes into that had indicated that all the other requirements for subdivision had essentially been approved and that they were 99% of the way there. The only sticking point was this application, or excuse me, was whether or not it was dedicated open space. So if I can, Gary, make that. Just as a practical matter, I would ask you to look at that, and in that particular time, it's a lot easier to go to the town's website. That took me a while to figure out how to take a YouTube video and download it onto a thumb drive so that it was actually playable, but you can do that if you want to look at that particular portion of that. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Novak.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Novak. I'm an attorney for the East Lyme Land Trust. Many of you have met before in the various endeavors to preserve property in the town of East Lyme. There has been a lot of misinformation, incorrect information that's been circulating regarding the land trust and its involvement here. In the fall of 2024, the land trust became aware of the property being possibly re-subdivided into 2 building lots. And at the time, that contained 3.87 acres. My client worked with the property owner. The East Lyme Land Trust worked with Mr. Harney and others, which led to an agreement in which the property owner conveyed the property to the East Lyme Land Trust. On the condition, however, that they simultaneously, the land trust simultaneously, convey a portion of the property to Hathaway Farms Incorporated. My client was able to facilitate the proposed transaction using an exemption to the local subdivision regulations provided by Connecticut General Statutes. This resulted in the proposed 2-lot re-subdivision being reduced to 1 lot. And the remaining property, approximately 2.71 acres, would be transferred and kept by the East Lyme Land Trust at no cost to the East Lyme Land Trust. So it was a great deal for the East Lyme Land Trust. I think a good deal for the town of East Lyme. The transaction was recorded in the land records in December 27th of 2024, and the volume and page numbers are in the document. The page the January 13th letter that I sent to the commission members. In the meantime, however, there's been a lot of rumors and a lot of false information being circulated by somebody, I don't know who, but we're trying to today respond to those incorrect comments and those incorrect misconceptions regarding the property. I have reviewed claims made by the town assessor, zoning officials, as well as a petition from the neighborhood residents, and the Land Trust is somewhat troubled by this. Again, we're the good guys. We're supposed to be saving properties for the town and for the residents of the town. This allows us to do that. All right. The common theme being advanced here by someone is that it's already open space. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for 40 years. I looked at the documentation. I'd be glad to take it to trial. I will win. It is not open space. That was changed, and that will later come with an explanation about the title search and the various documents and the various official findings by previous boards and commissions of this town. Basically, the local developers here are going to work with us. They're going to hopefully preserve the 2-point-some-odd acres. I'd like to present the letter that Art Carlson, the president of the East Lyme Land Trust, signed. Mr. Carlson was not feeling well tonight, otherwise he would have been here. And basically, it's to the commission. Please accept this correspondence as confirmation the East Lyme Land Trust has agreed to accept the conservation easement on the above referenced property, which is the Cedar Brook Lane properties. And there's a map attached. And I'm going to, again, give copies. The original would go to the chairman, and what do we need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 copies. And the original, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You want to distribute it? Yeah, I can do that. And then I have a map that goes with it.
You're good. Thank you.
See from Mr. Carlson's letter, as well as the map, that the land trust would take conservation easement here where the green is marked, and that would leave the remaining property in the possession of the current landowners, which is the folks that were so kind as to provide the land trust with the conservation easement. It should be noted that this property is way off in the corner and shouldn't affect any of the neighbors. It's 300 and something feet away of where this property is located from the corresponding neighbors. And the impact on the neighbors is going to be slight, if any. Mr. Carlson and I did have a discussion as to the concerns of the neighbors, because we are cognizant of the fact that they don't know what's going on here. They're very concerned. And Mr. Carlson, who's a problem solver, basically, has asked the applicant, the owner of the property, to consider accommodating the neighbors' concerns by placing a non-publicly accessible conservation easement on portions of the property, okay? So you wouldn't have that concern that there's all sorts of problems being on that property because it's going to be limited. And again, the Land Trust has prepared a proposed map which would, in Mr. Carlson's view, address the Meadowlark Lane residents' concerns. We acknowledge that that cannot be a requirement since all the required open space has been met, but they are willing to do that. There is no final agreement as yet because we're waiting to see what happens here. But I think it's a win-win situation for the town, for the East Lyme Land Trust, and for the property owners because it will finally make this property definitively accessible to certain folks who want to use it under the land trusts. And I would add, in the last 8 years or so, the land trust has preserved over 500 acres in this town. Previous to that, the land trusts who existed prior to that didn't do a fraction of that. And Jeffrey Torrance, who is here tonight, and is, I think he was voted the Volunteer of the Year by the Land Trust. He is here to present what is a very intensive and extensive review of the history of this property. And I'm going to leave it to him to get into the facts, if you'd all. Thank you.
Good evening, Jeff Torrance, 197 Upper Patagonic Road. So I have some maps that I'd like to hand out as well. This is a series of maps regarding the heritage of East Lyme subdivision.
You'll have enough copies. What is this?
Yeah, whatever. Okay. And then I have this Attorney Novak's letter, and underneath it is the report.
That's voluminous. Okay.
So this subdivision, Heritage subdivision, began in 1988, and my knowledge of it goes back to 2008, actually before, when my business partner and I were asked to finance the acquisition of portions of this property by KSK Associates. So a lot of the background information I had in files from 17 years ago. So the subdivision itself was initially approved back, back in 1988 as a conditional approval of a master plan. And that's the first map that you have in that package. And that included about 25,000 linear feet of road, 194 building lots, and some areas that were identified on maps that had the notation open space, and others that didn't. And so, if you look at the second map, these are the areas in orange and yellow that were identified as, and then in addition to that, parcel 1 and parcel 2. Fast forward to today, the only parcels of land that were formally dedicated in this subdivision were parcels 1 and 2. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that the subdivision stalled in the late 80s. There's only a few of us that were around then, I guess, that the banks all failed, developments all failed. In this case, it went through a couple of owners, and in 1992, a gentleman by the name of Kavanewski purchased the property. And Mr. Kavanewski came in and took over the project and worked with a local builder developer on that project. And then if you go to the title search in January of 1993, Mr. Kavanewski and his building partner, Mr. Nazarko, came to the commission and said that they wanted to get a final approval, but they didn't want to do the whole thing. And they wanted to change the scope of the subdivision and do it in pieces. And what happened was they were told in no uncertain terms in January, at the January 1993 meeting of this commission, it's all or nothing. And your option is to come back with a new plan and get it reapproved, which is exactly what they did. So on June 1st, 1993, they submitted a re-subdivision application. And this re-subdivision application included 76 lots on 139 acres. And it was approved on July 13th, 1993 by this commission. Several months later, on December 7th, 1993, as evidenced by the documents in this package I gave you here, the developer came in, and this was not a conditional approval, by the way. This was a final approval, this re-subdivision plan. And so on December 7th of 1993, the developer came in, had completed all the public improvements in the subdivision, and requested the Planning Commission forward to the Board of Selectmen a request that the town accept all the public improvements, which is the roads and such, stormwater facilities, and which they did. Included in that request was a request that they accept the open space. And the open space that they forwarded to the Board of Selectmen were parcels 1 and 2 on this map here. The Board of Selectmen met on December 15th, 1993. They approved the dedication, the acceptance of the public improvements of the road and stormwater management facilities. And they approved the acceptance of parcels 1 and 2 for the open space. And it was by deed, by warranty deed, from the town. And I think hold on just a second, so I pull this section out. So in making the motion to accept the open space, the minutes state as follows. Ms. Elam noted that this has been ongoing since 1987. The property includes, this is the open space, 21 acres, which consists of floodplains and wetlands. The town is trying to protect Latimer Brook, and we have plans to have open space along the brook. The Planning Commission assured plenty of public access, and there's also access up north for fishing. This area is part of our aquifer protection area. Ms. Elam showed the plans to the board. Mr. Sestair moved to accept on behalf of the town of East Lyme, as recommended by the Planning Commission, the two brookfront open space parcels as shown on sheet 49, which is that sheet, of the subdivision plans entitled Heritage at East Lyme and described in warranty deeds from Joseph Kavanowski to the town of East Lyme, seconded by Mr. Rando. Motion passed unanimously. This was December 15th, 1993. So, what happened to the rest of the land? Well, it was originally on maps. The 4 parcels. Except for the eastern portion of parcel A, all the remaining parcels and the portion that includes the land subject to this subdivision application has been held in private ownership since that point in time. Parcels A and D were conveyed to KSK Associates. Parcels B and C are actually still owned by the Kavanowski family. So, from KSK Associates' perspective, what did they do? They bought in 2008 about 215 acres in 3 parcels from the Kavanowski family. And what did they do? First, in 2010, they re-subdivided parcel D and created three lots on what was formerly going to be open space in the original master plan. Yes, see that shaded area where he's pointing? As part of that purchase, they did provide a voluntary conservation easement, so five more acres was added to the open space total. I would note that when KSK subdivided this property, which was approved by this commission on February 2nd, 2010, during the public hearing, the minutes state in part as follows. Mr. Geisel also noted that in the previous subdivision, Heritage, that the open space had been dedicated and they could not ask for it again here. And then he goes on to describe, with regard to the easement that was mentioned, the voluntary easement, a conservation easement will be dedicated to the town, and he suggests they could add it as a seventh modification to address that. So that was in 2010. In 2017, KSK sold 166 acres to the New England Forestry Foundation. That was the large part of what was going to be the remainder of the subdivision, containing 115 lots. On that parcel, the town got a conservation easement for the entirety of the parcel. And that 168 acres includes the eastern part of parcel A. It was on the previous map. And then 2 years later, in 2019, Cascade Associates sold the remaining property to New England Forest Foundation, who gave a conservation easement to the DEEP. And all of these formal dedications of open space are included in the memo that I presented to the commission. So that was the original master plan on the bottom. It shows the 10% open space that was required at the time for this 339 acre parcel, I'm sorry. And this is what became of it. And what became of it in this subdivision is that 225 of the 339 acres have been dedicated into open space, or 67% of the total land in the subdivision, when 10% is required. And so what the Land Trust has done as part of their acquisition, what they get to keep is the orange area, which is in addition to the 25 225 acres that's already been dedicated, leaving 1.2 acres to be developed. As Attorney Novak mentioned to you, Mr. Carlson had asked the property owner to consider placing a conservation easement on a portion of their 1.2 acres to address the concerns of the neighbors on Meadowlark Lane. So in my review of all of the documents, there has been no deed to any of the parcels A, B, C, or D to formally dedicate them as open space. They were in fact abandoned in the 1993 re-subdivision plan. If you look at the re-subdivision plan from 1993, parcels A, B, and C are all on there. And there's no more reference to open space. The open space reference is actually only to parcel 1 as part of that subdivision. And so just some other quick notes. It's a common practice of this commission to change locations of open space during the course of a subdivision. And I was the developer of both the Nottingham Hills and the Darrow's Ridge subdivisions. And in both of those subdivisions, this commission approved the relocation of open space during subsequent phases. And it usually had to deal with something better came up, and they'd rather have this than they'd have than that. And in fact, in reviewing some old meeting minutes, you've been doing this a long time, Mr. Chairman. You were actually on the commission in November of 2010 when you approved a change of location of open space in the Nottingham Hills subdivision that allowed a parcel of land that had not been formally dedicated as open space as required by the Connecticut General Statute 47-5 to be relocated. And I believe, I know that you got an opinion letter from legal counsel at the time indicating just that. In this case, the applicants aren't looking for you to make that decision because the decision was made in 1993 by previous members of this commission. So that's the background from the land trust perspective. The land trust is preserved 2.87 or 81 of the 3.9 of these acres as conservation land. And there is a difference between conservation land and open space land. Open space land implies that there's going to be public access. Conservation land does not. So there's plenty of open space, I think, as I've shown on these plans, that is publicly accessible open space. Within the suburbs. So, unless anybody has any questions, that's all that I all I have.
Questions for Mr. Torrance? I gotta say, this is incredibly complicated, the history of this thing. A lot of us have been spending a lot of time on it, so appreciate your presentation, it was excellent, and all the sketches and everything really helped, helped us out. So no one has any questions, Mr. Torrance?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question as part of my memo. So the one question I did have is that the parcel was subject to being transferred as open space to Connecticut DEP, and I believe I had worked on providing some maps back then in 2013 or somewhere in that area. Anyhow, there were proposed parking areas that were proposed in the southeast corner of the subject parcel. So the question is, does that still have to be constructed? I don't know if DEEP would require that, but at least in the maps that I have and that were prepared and I think were submitted, again, I don't have a copy of the grant application, so I just asked the question, does it need to be constructed? How is DEEP handling that?
Well, so DEEP's compliance issues are going to be with the conservation holder or the property owner, right? So the town of East Lyme, as to parcel 4, that the large part, 166 acres, that is the conservation easement is to the town of East Lyme, and the landowner is New England Forestry Foundation. So DEEP's going to be looking to one of the two of them for that. The subject property, the subject of this application, and the land trust property was not part of the DEP grant application for parcel 4, nor was it conveyed to the New England Forestry Foundation. And if you look at the map,
So I guess, just to interrupt you, so you're saying that this map was not included as part of their grant application?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's and in fact, if you look at the, if you look
That
at,
answers the question, though.
Yeah.
Then it wouldn't necessarily be an issue
Right.
going forward. Like, they wouldn't need to carve out space for this parking and provide public access, although the proposed conservation easement is kind of in that same spot.
well, this property isn't affected by the grant. If you look at the grant that was approved, I have a copy of it, I can get it to you. That was for a meets and bounds description of parcel 4 on that map, and that's what they got. So any parking area would have to be associated with that particular parcel. And interestingly, when you look at, I'm trying to find the map that was used to convey parcel 4. Down here, there's actually a notation on the survey map. This is what is part of the, was conveyed to the DEP. And there's a note on the survey plan that says, remaining land of KSK Associates, LLC.
In regards to the open space, no, that was an issue there. The other two are, I think, going to come up later.
So one thing I want to point out before I shift gears here too is what occurred with regard to this parcel that Mr. Harney or KSK Associates developed. The area that I'm pointing to right now, the hash mark area, that was all on the original map that said open space. If it had actually been dedicated as open space, you would not be able to take it out of that, nor would the commission have been able to provide some of the open space to be added to these lots in order to give them the sufficient frontage on the road. So this parcel, clearly, the commission made a determination was not open space. This parcel on the map that was then signed off on in 2016 by this commission and the town planner shows the other parcel that Mr. Harney acquired as remaining land of his and remaining land of KSK Associates. I think that's important because the commission obviously acknowledged at that time, by its actions, that it was not open space, because it couldn't have done, the commission could not have done what it did if it had been open space. And I'll provide the letter that Mr. Block wrote and Mr. Harney referenced, but in that, it says, his paragraph 2 refers to the fact that if it hasn't been conveyed as open space, then you can do what you want. But once it is conveyed as open space, and he outlines the process that was in effect in 2010 for that, which is a deed executed and accepted by the town, that is what basically locks it up as open space.
Anybody have any more comments or questions while the public hearing is open?
Well, I'll just make one comment as we're going through this because that might be relevant. I just want to note that in 2011 is when the commission had rewritten their regulations to adopt the Conservation Development by Design subdivision regulations. And that subdivision at the south end of Goldfinch Terrace was approved in 2010. Just want to make that noted.
This is, I have an affidavit from Mr. Harney. I do not appear to have sufficient copies for every commission member, but I'll bring that on Mr. Harney since he's not here.
Certainly.
Share.
So Mr. Harney has essentially executed this affidavit in order to provide some background on this. He indicates in the affidavit that he has reviewed the various documents relating to this application, that he is the manager of KSK Associates. KSK was formed as a Connecticut limited liability company in July 31st, 2008. The initial purpose was to acquire the 3 parcels that are the subject of this original subdivision. In 2018, KSK obtained a warranty deed for the 3 parcels and recorded that in the town of East Lyme land records. Prior to the recording, the warranty deed identified in the preceding paragraph, a title search was conducted by KSK's legal counsel, Attorney John Palumbo Esquire, to determine the existence of any and all encumbrances. The title search revealed no open space obligations existed on any of the parcels being conveyed to KSK as a result of the actions taken by the town of East Lyme Land Commission that resulted in material changes to the, that there existed no open space obligations or limitations on the 3 properties. On August 18th, 2008, all the required open space dedications required by the amended and approved subdivision plans within the heritage line had already occurred, and he acquired the property free of any such restrictions. Mr. Harney further opines that no evidence exists. No better evidence exists to the lack of any open space obligations of the 3 parcels acquired by KSK on August 18th, 2008, one of which is the subject of this pending re-subdivision application, occurred in 2010 when the Planning Commission approved the re-subdivision of the property identified in Parcel 3 in the warranty deed to KSK Associates, of which the current application is a part. The approved re-subdivision plan entitled Boundary Survey and Natural Cultural Resources Map, Heritage at East Lyme Re-Subdivision Phase 2, Goldfinch Terrace and Egret Road, were recorded in Draw 6, Map 592 of the East Lyme Land Records, and it is printed on one of the exhibits that are up there in your book. In that, they use that parcel to create 3 additional building lots in that subdivision. So those 3 lots did not exist prior to his application for re-subdivision, and the agreement to utilize certain parts of that, what I'll say in air quotes, is open space. And that, again, as I noted myself, was that for purposes of conforming to some of the subdivision regulations on that. He refers to the expectation of purchasers referenced in the final paragraph of the zoning officer's review, ignores the fact that prior to any lot sales, the Planning Commission amended the location of the open space. That open space was formerly dedicated by deed to the town of East Lyme, and no other open space dedication was required or occurred on that.
I did have a comment regarding number 8, what you just read.
Yep.
So I'm checking the zoning regulations, and according to that, their regs, the cluster conservation by design regs were adopted, looks like December 17th of 2010. So they necessarily wouldn't have been applicable to this, and that would have been more of a conventional re-subdivision of the 3 lots to the south end.
Correct.
That's a distinguishing item that I'm making, because we have the currently clustered, the conservation design regulations as opposed, and the cluster were removed. So I think in this application, I would think that, so short of the open space already having been conveyed, how would you comply with Mr. Mulholland's memo, which suggests that you're in violation if you're getting there?
I'm saving him for last.
Okay.
All right. So the other item I wanted, there was a memo, but some follow-up, Gary. I'm not sure that made it into the published record online, but essentially this was my client's, Kristen Clark's response, our other professional engineer response to, dated November 24th, 2025, to Mr. Gaishel regarding a couple of the items that he had raised in his review of that, and those had been addressed. I have some other... That is Exhibit BB. And then she had a second letter addressed to just the chair as Exhibit A. I think that might come in under the same. That's November 24th.
Yeah, they're both dated November 24th.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And that letter, this is a letter addressing a waiver request. We have, as you may recall, a request for the waiver of a formal stormwater management plan. Mr. May is here. He actually submitted a written request for that. The town engineer has signed off on that, and I just want to be clear, because when we were before the Conservation Commission, there seemed to be some confusion as to the difference between an exemption, which is the stormwater management in this case, versus the waiver. The exemption is in your regulations under 6-8-7, and it says as follows: subdivisions consisting of 3 lots or less may request waivers in accordance with section 412 of specific section 6-8 with the approval of the Plan Commission, provided the following conditions are met. The applicant can demonstrate the water quality of the aquifer, wetland, or watercourse is not adversely affected. The proposed development will not cause or exacerbate any downstream flooding. In this particular case, Mr. Close's memo on this review indicated that he was fine with that because it's a single lot. And the difference with the exemption is it applies almost automatically to any subdivision under 3 lots, but you still have to ask for it. And the way your regulations say you ask for an exemption is to use a request for a waiver under your regulations, and that's what we've done here. So we're not asking for you to look the other way, so to speak, or not require us to do something. Your own regulations say we don't have to do it, but we have to notify you of that so that that issue is addressed both by the commission and by staff on that. It also addressed Mrs. Cogan's, hopefully I'm saying her Coggins, apparently had made a issue at the last hearing with regard to that. And I think I've explained the difference between the two. But I think what people were thinking of, and this was the issue before the Conservation Commission, is that when you're seeking an exemption under this, all we were seeking for is an exemption from actually having to do a formal process. The calculations, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, the calculations and everything else that's required to determine the flow, the direction, were all done and all signed off on by the town engineer. And that's what, in the second part of this letter from my client, she says, secondly, the exemption does not waive the applicant's obligation to comply with the applicable requirements of the subdivision stormwater requirements. Rather, it really provides a mechanism to exempt certain property-specific, non-applicable items based on the applicant and their professional engineer's submission, which are reviewed by the town engineer and addressed in the subdivision regulation 6-81. It's important to understand that a number of the requirements for section 6.8 of your regulations anticipate the construction of off-site improvements, i.e. roads, drainage-related structures, or improvements that create significant impervious surface areas that are not applicable to a single lot subdivision. And I'll ad-lib here for a second. When we met with Mr. Close, he said he didn't see any issue with it because it's a single lot. There's very little drainage area, it's a short driveway, and there is a stormwater catch basin at the base of the driveway that would pick up anything that emanates from the driveway or otherwise on the lot. So the subdivision regulations recognize that this is a factual reality, and thus the exemption is provided under 6-8-7. To provide some perspective, she notes that over the last 5 years, the Town of East Lyme Planning Commission has approved exemptions for certain portions of stormwater requirements in your subdivision regulations for the following small subdivisions, all of which required no public improvements. And this is in the letter. That is the letter that I'm reading from here. Yeah. Literally never copies. But on the second page of the letter, one of those subdivisions is Old Black Point Road. One new lot was created. Second subdivision listed is Upper Kensington, lots 1921-1. New lots were created. Spring Rock Road, one new lot was created. Upper Kensington Drive, lot 27-2. Two new lots created. Scott Road, Hathaway Farm, Phase 1. 3 lots created. Scott Road, Phase 2. 3 new lots created. Scott Road, 1 new lot created, and Brainerd Road, 1 new lot created. But all 8 of those applications were 3 lots or less, and this commission granted the exemption in every single case. In Mr. Close's review, dated November 14th, 2025, the proposed site plan for the application was engineered pursuant to applicable requirements under section 6-81, 6-82, 6-83, and 6-84 of the subdivision regulations which relate to stormwater. She indicates that section 6.6-8-1, paragraph C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, H, I, K, L, M, are not applicable as they relate to public improvements, and there are no public improvements proposed for this particular lot. The development of 1.2 acres on this property has minimal impervious surfaces, and pursuant to the exemptions from under requirements of section 6-87 of the subdivision regulations and the town engineer's review of the application, the applicant's site plan submitted as part of the pending application, it demonstrates that the water quality of the receiving aquifer, wetland, or watercourse is not as adversely affected, and the proposed development won't exacerbate existing conditions.
Just for the record, as I'm reading here, it's page 3 of Ms. Clark's letter. A, item A at the bottom, just before number 8. She notes that for the record, this application with East Lyme Land Trust offered to convey the 2.71 acre property as she understood it from a discussion with a representative of the East Lyme Land Trust. And she indicates it has been ignored and not responded to by the town despite the offer first being made nearly a year ago. If that offer was made just to me, I did not bring that forward to the Board of Selectmen, because I don't make those decisions. So if the conversation was had with the Board of Selectmen or the first Selectman, well then, maybe that might be accurate. So I just want to go on record that if the individual from the Land Trust thought talking to me was going to effectuate that, yeah, that wasn't gonna happen. So, just want to clear that for the record. That being said, if the town, if this commission was so interested in acquiring the 2.74 acres, we could have that discussion with the Land Trust because they own it. Right? And we can make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that it might be something that they consider acquiring. But beyond that, we don't, it's not part of this subdivision.
My client is, Ms. Clark has already also prepared a response to some of the comments from the public members on this. Gary, I can give you that. What I'd like to do is place this up here. As the commission knows, there were a number of members of the public who raised concerns at the last public meeting on that. And her response to Mr. Bryan's comments that there are many obstacles that this property has, especially being ledge, uneven, and on a decent grade. That claim is demonstrably untrue as evidenced by the A2 survey of the application property, plan sheet 2 of 4, which identifies the location of the ledge in the northeast corner of that lot and is largely within the side and rear setbacks, which prohibit buildings to be located on. Next, Mr. Bryan claims that it seems that this lot would be deemed unbuildable, able, and that they are trying to squeeze in the structure without any real thought. That statement is also untrue. The site plan prepared, plan sheet 4 of 4, was prepared by Connecticut licensed professional engineers, whom, as evidenced by the site plan, gave a lot of thought to the location of the home in terms of the site topography, whereas evidenced by the plan, minimal grading was required in the home's location, which is a minimum of 165 feet from the abutting common property line at the rear of Meadowlark Lane, at the rear of the Meadowlark Lane homes, when only 30 feet is required. The site plan clearly demonstrates the application is not seeking to squeeze anything into this property, as it has 387.61 feet of frontage, more than twice the required amount, is 1.2 acres of area, an amount that is 30% more than is required. The location for the home was chosen due to its ease of access, topography, existing grades, requiring minimal regrading and ability to comply rather easily, she adds, with the recommendation contained in the 2024 Deep Stormwater Management Manual regarding and relating to stormwater management. So when we're looking at this, this is a topo map of the property. This parcel here is the applicant's property. This parcel here in the lower right-hand corner are the parcels on Meadowbrook. So the distance from where the proposed house is 339 feet. But what's important to note here is the houses on Meadowlark, in particular this house, are at an elevation of approximately 82 feet. The rear yard and the ledge in the rear yard goes up to 92 feet on that. As for the issue of carving in there, so all these houses are on steep lots, particularly to the rear of them, and that's frankly not uncommon in any area around here. The proposed house is in the lowest elevation and is proposed for an area closest to the street that is allowed. So we're not talking about blasting into ledge or anything like that. And that's obvious reason the developer wouldn't want to do that. But any of these houses are not going to be able to see this house, partly because of the distance and partly because the ledge behind it, at certain points, these houses over here, the ridge is at 111 feet, and their houses, which were cut into that ridge line there, are at 80 feet. And as I indicated, then there's 108 feet of ledge, or 108 feet elevation, I should say, in this area. So the claims that somehow this is going to impact the use of their properties really just seem superfluous on this. And frankly, if we were to look at the other houses, this is going to be essentially similar to the way they were designed in there. It's going to be cut in a little bit into the hillside. The lot will be leveled off just like those lots were. I mean, these topo lines are not natural. These were man-made when these houses were built. If you can look at these gradients are every 2 feet, and then all of a sudden it levels off, and then it goes up even steeper in the back. And the reason they do that is because that's where you're going to put the house. So you go in, you level it off, you use that dirt to make the area around the house level, and then you build the house. That's exactly what's going to happen over here. So the issue that Mr. Bryant raised about this being in his backyard and affecting the integrity of his property and the foundation if they're blasting, I think those are all unfounded claims. But the other issue in terms of we're talking about, the affected use of the property, I suspect that's a privacy issue, but these houses are very close to each other, 54 feet apart, 76 feet apart. In the backyards, essentially, if you're in your backyard, and you don't have a fence or you don't have a buffer of some sort, you're going to see your neighbors. That's not uncommon, but that's also not something that's required by my client to shield the view of their house if it otherwise meets the regulations.
Attorney Garrett, you said the top of the ridge was, what's the elevation?
118, I think.
118, and the houses are at elevation?
Houses are at elevation 82. The ridge goes up to 92, and then as you get onto Arcline's property, it's 115, 108.
So it's like 20 plus
20 plus
feet of increased elevation before you'd have to see over the hill to see the house.
Correct. We don't anticipate any blasting, but she indicates that were blasting to occur, it would be in excess of 250 feet. To give this blasting some concern, some perspective, the Orchard subdivision has regularly blasted for more than a decade without incident within 50 feet of the residences. Mr. Bryant next claims the lot is uphill from me and my neighbors, a claim that is misleading as a review of the site plan topography, as I just demonstrated, shows that it's really not uphill. It's about level with that, and it has a ridge line in between. The other issue, too, as I'm sure this commission is aware, is whenever any blasting is going to occur, there's pre- and post-blasting reports that have to take place. So there's a blasting survey that's required by law for anybody, but we don't anticipate that. Finally, she indicates Mr. Bryan expressed other environmental concerns with deforestation and the removal of flora, which has the potential to create significant runoff, stormwater, and flooding issues, for which there was no support. The town engineer's review of the applicant's proposed site plan rather conclusively demonstrates all of the above referred concerns are unfounded and unsupportable. In the final analysis, Mr. Bryan's claims are all unfounded and unsupported. Not a single document was included to back up any of the allegations in there. The site plan demonstrates the proposed new home at its closest point is 339 feet, as I noticed, that the separation between the proposed home and Mr. Bryant's home, the topographic elevation rise from a proposed finished floor level of 98.5 feet to 110 feet, which elevation is at the common boundary, the Bryant lot and the Hathaway farm lot. This elevation continues for a length of 25 feet onto Mr. Bryant's property, Mr. Bryant's home is located at an elevation of 81 feet, which would translate to a first floor elevation of 83 feet. Assuming 8-foot ceilings, that translates into an elevation of 101 feet at the ceiling. And as we've indicated, that's either with the ridge line, or as the further back you go, the ridge line gets even higher. I think there was a question, I'm reading my client's letter, that it says if there was the reason for the waiver is a financial factor, why would that be a problem for the community at large and not a burden for the developer to bear? Again, I think that misunderstands what we're asking for. Putting aside the waiver is merely the process of getting the exemption, which is an entitlement under the subdivision regulations if you can satisfy the criteria for it, which we have done. There was a comment apparently by Mrs. Coggins regarding that in her personal experience as a property owner in various towns throughout Connecticut, she finds developers who request waivers are trying to do so to maximize profit, and their request in no way benefits the community at large. The client's response is that she would note that in addition to providing no support for the claim, it's not applicable to the current application and demonstrates clear bias on the property owners as to this application. And when she goes on the note, I'm not going to read the whole thing because I've covered it, I think, adequately elsewhere, but that we've fully complied with the updated 2024 deep stormwater management guidelines on that. Then there's the letter from January 11th. Got 5 of these, or 5 copies, so I'm getting closer to the number. This is correspondence from my client regarding the petition that was attached and received by my office after it was sent over by staff, opposing the application on that. So one of the comments that came up during the meeting was that most folks who purchased their homes, this property was identified as protected open space. The only reference to this being open space, as I said, is on the 1988 map of the conceptual subdivision. The homeowners claim that they relied upon the designation when making significant financial personal decisions. Real estate agents and developers consistently communicated that this land was not buildable, reinforcing their expectations that the area would remain undisturbed. Changing the intent of this use of this land undermines the trust residents place in the planning process. I can almost assure you that nobody came down here to look at the planning file, any of the residents prior to purchasing their home. I can't guarantee that, but in addition, if they had, and they had gone back through the minutes, they would have seen exactly what we've seen. Granted, it was difficult, and most homeowners don't do that. I've done plenty of real estate closings, and I know the homeowners don't, rarely, unless they're an attorney or whatever like myself, I will go down there and I will look at everything else to see what you have. But 99.9% of the homeowners do not do that. They rely upon whatever title search their attorney gets back, and that is the extent of it. And nobody at the last hearing provided any other evidence other than what would amount to hearsay, and that a realtor told them that it was open space. And that, frankly, is insignificant or is insufficient when one wants to make a detrimental reliance claim that they did. Because in order to claim that they relied detrimentally on something, A, it has to be a comment from, say, my client or Kavanowski as to what the status was, not third parties. But they have to you have to show that the reliance was reasonable under the circumstances, and that you undertook certain steps to gain information, relied on that information, and that information provided to you by the person who you're trying to assert this reliance claim against. So I want to be clear, that information that they gave you was false. Nobody can do that here, because the only person they're claiming they relied upon, at least from what I heard, were the realtors. And the realtors aren't in the mix here as far as that goes. But nobody came up and said that they went to the town hall or they got an opinion from an attorney, because it just didn't happen on that. So let me get on to my client's response to those comments. But the claim that the property is designated and represented as open space is just simply not true. To the contrary, long before the sale of the lot in the subdivision on July 13th, 1993, to the contrary, long before the first lot sale in the subdivision, the East Lyme Planning Commission on July 13th, 1993 approved the re-subdivision. That's the comments that Mr. Torrance himself made earlier and what we have been stating as well. That relocated the required subdivision open space on December 7th, 1993, as evidenced by this commission's meeting minutes, Exhibit D to her letter, which was approved and forwarded to the Board of Selectmen for acceptance by the town of East Lyme. A deed to the property was approved as the required open space for the subdivision. On December 15th, 1993, the Board of Selectmen approved and accepted the deed to the property as evidenced by the attached minutes in this exhibit, which is Exhibit E to, not sure what number is this one again, Gary? Or letter, I should say.
This is going to be Exhibit MM.
MM. She also attached a map of the property that was conveyed. That's Exhibit G. The petition allegations set forth in Claim 1 are not supported by any evidence. In fact, the evidence attached in evidence by Exhibit H, with the exception of Mr. Rochelle's property, which was acquired in January 25th, 1994, none of the other petition signatories acquired their properties before 2010, after the commission and the town's selectmen accepted, both changed and accepted the different open space. The claims of reasonable expectations based on these are demonstrably not true. On that, we're to the point that petitioners certainly received none of the information from the property owner, successor, or developer. That's my point earlier about neither Mr. Kavanowski or Hathaway Farms made any representations to any of the neighbors with regard to what the status of this property was. The open space behind Meadowlark Lane is a defining feature of the community. This was another in the letter. Residents choose to live in East Lyme because of the peaceful environment, well-planned neighborhoods, and balance between development and natural space. Reducing this open space will diminish the character and the charm that makes East Lyme attractive to families, professionals. Overdevelopment risks eroding what makes this town unique. As addressed in response to Claim 1, there is no open space behind Meadowlark. Property behind the homes on Meadowlark is unencumbered, privately owned land. As further addressed in response to the Claim 1 of the East Lyme Planning Commission, as was their legal right, accepted all the legally required open space in the Heritage at East Lyme subdivision in other locations which did not include any land behind Meadow Lane. But the real key issue here is, if you were driving down this road and you drove by that, you wouldn't know who owned this land. You wouldn't know whether it was part of somebody else's property on Meadowlark or part of the larger piece, because it's not designated as anything. In other words, there's no conservation plaques out there on the property. And this parcel, putting one house on it, is not going to impact the values of any of the other houses in the area. They might not like it because they always thought that would be open space, but when I was on the Planning Commission, one of the biggest concerns I had when people came in and talked about open space was, did they really understand what they were talking about? Just because it's undeveloped land and there are maybe large swaths of it or small, it doesn't mean it's open space. It means it's owned by somebody. It's always owned by somebody, whether it's the town, the state, individuals, out-of-state individuals, companies, whatever. But that doesn't mean it's open space. But that's what we get to expect when we see that. We see something is never developed, and we just assume it's open space, it'll always stay that way. But that's not the nature of zoning. Zoning is forever changing. We've heard that here tonight. There have been multiple amendments to the subdivision regulations on that. I'm going to skip number 4 in that because I've already covered that. Number 5, the other comment was East Lyme already faces challenges with water management, especially during heavy rain events. Adding more houses and associated paving surfaces will increase the runoff and put additional pressure on the area's drainage system. This could heighten the risk of flooding, erosion, and costly infrastructure and upgrades borne by taxpayers. As evidenced in the responses, as evidenced by the town engineers in the November 14th, 2025 review plan, the proposed site complies with the steep stormwater management, and the town engineer has indicated the applicant has demonstrated that a portion of the stormwater runoff from the proposed development can be managed on-site through the use of a rain garden. Given the minimal amount of impervious surface proposed, any residual runoff from larger storms can be managed by the stormwater infrastructure immediately downstream from the property. It should also be noted that contrary to the petitioner's claims, the stormwater management system for Heritage at East Lyme Subdivision Section 1, which includes the applicant's property, is extremely oversized given it was designed for 115 additional upgrading homes and 13,000 plus of town road, which will never now be constructed because those 200 acres went into open space or conservation space. The other comment is that East Lyme is widely recognized for its excellent schools, abundant open space, and strong community connections. Allowing unnecessary and intrusive development threatens these advantages. The town continues to approve housing expansion at the expense of open land. It risks diminishing the very qualities that draw people to the town. In response, my client states that the petitioners ignore the fundamental constitutionally protected rights afforded to property owners to develop their properties. The applicant is entitled to rebuild a single home on the subject property as long as it complies, which it does, with all requirements of the Town of East Lyme subdivision regulations. Claims by the petitioners that construction of a single-family home on unencumbered private land will have a negative impact on the community desirability is simply unfounded. I think I'd also point out, too, that Hathaway Farm, LLC, which is the owner of this property, has contributed substantial amounts of open space to the town through some of its efforts, which the original was the Hathaway Farm, a piece that had been sought after, or I shouldn't say sought after because the town didn't acquire it until recently, but had been #1 on the town's list. And we actually went to the town and asked them about that, and it went nowhere. And then ultimately, when Hathaway Farm was able to acquire that parcel, they worked with the land trust and state DEEP to put approximately 115 acres of that into permanent open space. So there has to be some development. I get people don't like anything to change after that, but that's just simply not the world that we lived in, nor has it ever been the world that we lived in. What Hathaway Farm has done, however, is willing to put a portion of this land that they're seeking the application for under a conservation restriction. The land trust benefits by getting the additional piece which it can add to the forestry portion. And this allows them to go forward and to develop a lot which they paid real money for on this and have a right and an entitlement to build on at this point in time.
So, can I just ask, I mean, I've been going on here, appreciate that, but During the original, back in 87, 88, 87, when this originally got approved, I'm looking at Bill Mulholland's
Your
letter here. It said on October 1st, 87, the zoning commission approved the cluster zone with open space 144 acres, including the land and the proposed re-subdivision presently before the commission. So with that approval, we had these drawings where it had open space marked all over it. Even had open space marked on this lot, clearly. So,
Go ahead, I'm listening.
yeah, so even though it wasn't conveyed, the subsequent dealings after that, but this was approved. How did those markings get on the drawing? Who put open space all over those drawings?
So, this is perfect timing, because I have my response to Mr. Mulholland here. And this is anything I have.
Those are drawings of record, right?
They are maps that are recorded in the land records.
Yep.
The notation was done on the map by Mr. Kavanowski's engineers, I presume. But I want to point out, and I do in my letter, Mr. Mulholland is being, I think, quite cute with the language that he uses there. He knows full well, because he talks about it as being, let me pull it out so I have it. Not that he is cute, but that he's playing cute.
But the proposed subdivision was proposed, and then these drawings with these open space notes all over them. How do you get by that? I'm having trouble getting by
I
that.
think that's the point I've been making all night. You get by it because that's not what ultimately happened. What goes to the Planning Commission referred the 1988 application to zoning.
Yeah.
It was a conceptual design. The zoning commission looks at it and says, great, sends it back to the Planning Commission saying, we're good with this design. I have stood at this platform on more occasions before the zoning commission when Mr. Mulholland has asked me, this is a conceptual design. Are you claiming, Mr. Garrity, if we approve the conceptual design, that allows you to go into the building department or the engineering department and pull permits? And I said, absolutely not. It's conceptual. All it does is give us a warm feeling, frankly, is what it comes down to under the law, that the commission, when we come back with a final plan, will approve it when we get into more detail. But a conceptual plan doesn't lay out anything more than the lots, essentially. It shows you the location, how many lots there are going to be, where the roads are going to be, where public improvements may be. And Mr. Mulholland knows that. So the conceptual plan that was approved by the zoning commission and then sent back, it did have, I was looking for it on here, it did say open space on some of the documents, or some of the map plans that were submitted. But, as Mr. Torrance explained, when he went through this, if you look at the subsequent actions of the commission, they changed. And it was re-subdivided. And that open space went away. And new plans were recorded in the land records and actually approved as a final application. That's why these lots were not included in that. They were basically not part of what the re-subdivision plan looked like. So in response to Mr. Mulholland's in the first paragraph, he says, identifies a map entitled Open Space Sheet 49B 130. I believe, Mr. Bombeck, that's what you're referring to. And opines incorrectly, this is my position, that the property identified on the map as open, and opines incorrectly that the property on the map is open space. As evidenced by the stated map attached as Exhibit A, there's no reference on the map that the property is subject to the pending subdivision application was identified as open space, and these are the exhibits that are included in the letter. Nor has the subject property been formally dedicated as open space as required under Connecticut General Statute 47.5, and that says any conveyance of land, whether it's an easement, a deed, outright conveying title, or restrictions, must be in writing and recorded in the land records. Additionally, Mr. Mulholland, I put the CEO, ignores the fact of which he should be aware that multiple re-subdivision lot line revisions and map changes were made subsequent to the initial conditional subdivision approval by the East Lyme Planning Commission. And it was a conditional approval because Nazarko's came back in at some point in the 2000s. Nazarko's took over and asked for a final subdivision in order that they could post the bond and start public improvements. Those re-subdivisions altered the original plans and the location of the 13.9 acres of open space required by the conditional approval in December 6, 1988. Next, the zoning officer addresses and attaches a September 3rd, 1987 letter from the Planning Commission letter recommending that the Zoning Commission approve the cluster concept for the subdivision in 1987. So that letter, attached to Mr. Mulholland's correspondence, it says right in there, Arthur Sanders, chairman, on October 1st, 1987, the East Lyme Zoning Board approved the proposed subdivision referred to it by the Planning Commission for the conceptual design for a 200 cluster subdivision located on Chesterfield Road and off Cedarbrook Lane, consisting of 339.2 acres with proposed open space of 144 acres. That's not what ended up getting built. So my response to that is that the commission approved the conceptual design, but that was never ultimately what was finally approved by the Planning Commission on that. Some 15 months later, as evidenced by the commission meeting minutes in Exhibit C of my response to Mr. Mulholland, the approval of the conceptual design identified in the ZEO's memorandum as non-binding action by definition. Our courts have held conceptual approvals are no more than a shadow, this is the court's words, lurking in the corner. A conceptual approval gives no rights to the applicant. This is the point Mr. Mulholland, as I made it earlier, jointly drove home to me on a number of affordable housing applications that we submitted as conceptual applications. In paragraph 3, the zoning officer comments and opines that because the land was approved as open space for zoning purposes, it cannot be considered anything other than open space defined by the 1987 zoning regulations. Those are the regulations that I introduced earlier. Those regulations specify what the town's requirements are to effectively create open space. None of them were followed or met. And I don't think it was by accident, it was deliberate, because people were, the applicants or the owners at the time were coming back in and making revisions to the application.
Okay, thank you.
So he opines that the subdivision cluster regulations are no longer permitted by the town of East Lyme zoning regulations. Don't disagree with that. Thus rendering the original subdivision a nonconformity. The zoning regulations in section 21 specifically prohibit the expansion of a nonconformity except in compliance with a current zoning regulation, which removed cluster which removed cluster zoning in 1992. And in my opinion, the addition of another lot in place of the open space would constitute an expansion of a nonconformity and contrary to the town approval by both planning and zoning commissions. I really think Mr. Mulholland knows what he's saying there, and he would know that that's not true. Subdivisions don't become nonconformities by virtue of a change in the subdivision regulations. Lots within a subdivision may become nonconforming, but they're legal nonconforming lots. There are other issues that apply to those lots when you try to do something down the road if they're legal nonconforming lots. But the subdivision itself is not a nonconforming subdivision. So maybe some of these original lots, which don't meet the current zoning, minimum zoning area, are now nonconforming. But the thing is, this lot has to meet, and it does meet, every single zoning and subdivision regulation that is in effect today. And we've demonstrated that. Then, the CEO opinion also ignores the fact that the commission, as I've noted, approved several re-subdivisions on here. That importantly utilize, this is the KSK, which utilized some of this open space. So I'm not sure what Mr. Mulholland was doing back in 2010 and in 2016, I think it was, when Mr. Harney came in as KSK and redid this. But he didn't obviously raise any objection to it back then because it got approved. So why he's coming in here today and saying that, oh no, you can't do this now because that's open space and you can't use that, it's always been open space. It's just two inconsistent positions that he had. There's nothing that indicated that he objected back then and was overruled by this commission. But what he should know, and again, it's in my letter, but I'll put it on the record verbally, he knows that there's nothing to prevent re-subdivision of the property, and this gets to my point, and that the claimed nonconformity is both false and misleading, given the fact that the Planning Commission amended their subdivision approval and open space location on July 13th, 1993, demonstrating the abandonment of the several other open space parcels, as were pointed out earlier. Finally, Mr. Mulholland further opines that anyone who purchased a lot in the original subdivision would have a reasonable expectation that the original approval by the Zoning Commission and Planning Commission would include open space and would remain in perpetuity and protected by the town's approvals. That's just wrong. It's just absolutely wrong, and I'm being kind when I say that, I believe. Zoning regulations, as we've indicated, change all the time. We've talked about that tonight. Mr. Gaishel just brought up the fact that there were subsequent changes to the regulations after Mr. Mr. Harney came in with his application. They're constantly being changed. You're going to be doing that every so often because you upgrade them, you look at things, and you try and change and go with the times. But the issue of reliance gets back to what I was saying before. I don't think that what I've heard to date from any members of the public, or particularly the abutters, passes the test for reliance as it relates to a legal standard for that. And I've laid out what that legal standard is in my letter in response to the commission. And I basically stated it earlier on that. But you have my memorandum of law. That's my response to Mr. Mulholland's letter. I get that. This is a difficult decision for this commission because things have changed. The public is upset. I get that too, and I can understand that. However, it doesn't change the legal requirements here for subdivision. It doesn't change the fact that this lot has never been conveyed as open space, that there are no restrictions on it. It doesn't change the fact that KSK acquired it, conveyed a portion of it to the land trust, and then the land trust conveyed this piece out to my client. My client has a right to develop this, and I think, I haven't seen Mr. Gaishel's memo on this, but I think other than the open space issue,
So, yeah, well, the open space issue was addressed. I think that addresses my concerns. This addresses, what appears to address Mr. Mulholland's claim that it's open space and that it's a non-conforming subdivision. I would certainly like to look into I would tend to agree with Mr. Garrity that you have non-conforming lots. Whether or not the subdivision itself could be non-conforming, I think the argument going forward is that, because as I was looking through waivers, the waiver criteria, it got me thinking about this non-conforming issue and how we go to ZBA and asking, and Mr. Holland did indicate that his determination there, his interpretation was a ruling and it had not yet been appealed. So be it, but based on this, it may not make a difference. Certainly, I would like our legal counsel to take a look at Mr. Garrity's interpretation here and making sure we're doing the right thing. In regards to my memo, well, I would need to actually revise it based on the information that was submitted tonight. That being said, my only question that might remain outstanding was in regard to the health code and the alleged light response. In section I made the finding that Section 5-4 of the regulations require certification by the alleged light health district. And it also guides the applicant to conducting test pits and so forth pursuant to our Appendix C. That all being said, at the end of the day, one of our requirements is that the test pits are observed by the health district or the health department. Ms. Baldwin indicates in her letter that there's no mention of who conducted the percolation tests, and it doesn't sound like she observed them or someone from her office had the data. I don't know. But in terms of complying with that one item, that would be the only outstanding item at this point that I can see. For the other comments that I had in regards to the open space and Mr. Mulholland's memo in particular, was the guidance here was that it was non-conforming, that you cannot expand a non-conformity. And that's something that I understand through zoning. But as Jerry said, you can't have a non-conforming subdivision, but rather the lots become pre-existing non-conforming. Again, what's the difference between a non-conforming subdivision and a non-conforming, and the lots becoming non-conforming as a result of the changes in the regulations? I don't know if there's any fine lines there, or if it's, as Mr. Garrity indicates, pretty clear. Looks like there's a fine line to me. There's a little gray area in there.
Mr. Gaisel, may I?
And then looks like Mr. May can speak to the health code issues.
When it comes to Tim May, May Engineering, I just wanted to say that there's a difference between test pits and perk tests. Test pits are required to be witnessed by a design professional or the health district, and perk tests don't have to have that same stringent. They just have to be done in accordance with the standards. So I just want to make sure that the health department doesn't have to be on site to do the perk test.
So, I believe it's section 5-3 in the current regulations, and the old regulation was section 5-4. But I believe it requires, it says the East Lyme Health Department, which again we don't have, we have now in contract that from the Light Health District, must be present to witness the digging, testing, or receiving, to witness the digging and testing, or receive satisfactory certification of conduct of testing.
That's correct.
So
Typically, it's a design professional needs to witness the digging of it, but Ledge Light and the same thing with Uncas, they prefer to do the test pits on site, but the perk tests can be done independently.
So with
Leslie, is present on site for the?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
For the test pits.
They were present.
For the
They
test
were.
pits.
So
Yes,
what her comment is that they weren't present for the perk tests.
what it was when the plans were done, I think the perk tests were, who actually did them was silent on the plans. She was requesting that the names be put on the plans.
Who was
Who did the perk test. It wasn't a
So those
question
could
of
be added to the plan, yes?
Yes.
that they were subsequently added.
They were subsequently added, okay, yeah, then that answers my question.
I believe that was a comment from like August or.
Right. Actually, I think Kristen may have responded to that.
So not seeing like an updated Light letter, maybe question.
Yeah, I think it was just her memo from November 24th.
Last,
that- Yeah, that indicated that she had made those changes.
Kristen's letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's, maybe I didn't quite see the two there, but, okay. Well, that addresses that issue, so I guess those test pits would be adequate to use going forward.
Do you have any other comments? Public hearing?
Well, those were the three issues that I had all in my memo, so it's kind of a
I know we need to,
viewpoint now.
we need to, review all this information we got tonight, so we won't be in a position to make any kind of decision, but as far as the public hearing,
Well, I think we gotta see if there's any public comments that anybody wants to speak. We are under an extension of time that was granted by the applicant, so we would be looking to probably close the public hearing. That said, the only thing, if you do that, the only thing you're gonna be able to receive is correspondence from staff and our town attorney. Mr. Gary did want the ability to cross-examine anyone from the public should they speak. I don't anticipate any additional staff report other than maybe Mr. Mulholland wanting to respond to Mr. Garrity's memo, but my guess is that he'll stand by his decision and go forward unless he wants to retract that. So that would not necessarily be possible unless we were granted another extension of time. I believe they've already granted a 30-day extension, so they would have 35 days to grant if they were to do that. Otherwise, we could close the public hearing.
so we'll call for,
Any public comment,
Yeah.
if there's,
Mr.
there,
Chair, is it possible that we could ask Attorney Garrity to maybe just address any concerns that are brought up by the public with us, so that we've had people sitting here for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
I would very much like them be able to talk and be able to have it. And I don't worry, we are definitely going to get to everyone for that one. I just more meant for, is it possible that we could maybe just address that? I don't know if it's after or just at the end, so that we can allow people to speak about what they're having.
are you done presenting information?
I have one more matter or item to cover, which regards the Conservation Commission referral, but I'll be quick, I'll truncate my comments. But if we were, not having seen Mr. Gaishel's memo, and if there were going to be additional items submitted, I'd want to keep the public hearing open for that purpose anyway, so we can respond, because
Read through it, because it needs to be completely revised, that my recommendations would change based on all of this.
well, and then it doesn't make sense for me to look at it tonight. So maybe if we need additional time, I think we can.
I would need additional time to correct it.
Right, I think we can grant that time so that comes in, and if there's any response to that. But I'd be probably committing a mistake if we closed the public hearing and then staff comments started coming in, and we don't have the right, or the ability, I should say, to address them because the public hearing was closed. So,
There's a lot of material here, and
oh yeah, I didn't think you were going to be deciding this tonight.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, maybe, if you're still here.
special meeting tomorrow?
All right, in fact, I'll try and go through this as quickly as I can. With regard to the Conservation Commission, there was a referral to that. Yeah, I'm supposed to be taking my meds right now, so if I hit the ground, somebody hopefully knows CPR, although I don't know if anybody would want to perform it on me. And I could understand that. We were at the meeting, and you said you were going to refer it to the Conservation Commission, which you did do, right? And we saw the letter to that, but the Conservation Commission did not notify us of the hearing or anything like that. I found out about it almost accidentally, and then when I showed up, I was told I couldn't speak. And I was like, somewhat appalled. I said, it's, what we're going to do. We resolve those differences, but in it, but it's sort of the same comments that my client had, that, we didn't get notice of it, we were, referred it, and then we had difficulty trying to present any evidence or rebuttal to what the claims were. So let me try and go through what we're concerned about with regard to the Conservation Commission's comments, much of which I really don't think are applicable to this particular application. It seemed to be more that they were looking on a global basis going forward by issues that they sort of saw arise out of an application like this. The Conservation Commission voted to approve a final memo that was provided that differs greatly from the minutes of the special November 24th meeting, which reflect Ms. Dinsmore's statement that the entire focus needs to be on how much open space will be in Phase 1 development area if the subdivision is permitted. Ms. Heller suggested a memo to the Planning Commission stating that 10% of the total phase subdivision should be retained as open space. That's Exhibit C in this response. In the response attached as Exhibit D, it's a map of the property of the town of the East Lyme Board of Selectmen approved on December 15th, 1993, together with the minutes of the acceptance of Exhibit E. And the request from the commission is from this commission, the Conservation Commission, that the Board of Selectmen, to the Board of Selectmen, that they accept 20 plus acres as open space. See the minutes of the December 27th meeting. But that was only for the area of Phase 1. We provided much more than that. One of the issues well, I'll finish my client's letter. This is another comment of the Commission. From an ecological perspective, there's nothing particularly unique about this parcel of wooded ledge, although a small portion is identified in the State Natural Diversity Database. In response, she notes that these claims are materially misleading, as only a small portion of the existing lot contains ledge, which is consistent with most of the other properties within the heritage at East Lyme subdivision. Attached as Exhibit G is the aerial photo from the East Lyme GIS showing similar ledge outcroppings. That is the one that I had posted up there earlier, I believe. On the adjacent Meadowlark Lane lots and elsewhere within the heritage at East Lyme subdivision. Secondly, as evidenced by the Natural Diversity database that was submitted to the Commission as Exhibit D to the design report, DEP opined as follows. In addition, in accordance with the project information provided in your request submittal, implementation of the following best management practices will avoid negative impacts to the listed species. So there was an issue raised at the conservation that a very small portion was listed as significant in there. But all DEP said was you take the following steps, and this is a common approach where if there is an animal or a species that has a specific breeding period or whatever, you don't do any work on the property during that period of time. The letter to the Commission then states, however, the value lies in its position with an extensive housing development that has a long history within the Town Planning Commission. In 1998, the parcel was part of a complex designed and naturally vegetated buffer zones to minimize stormwater runoff and prevent soil erosion. These ecological services have not changed or become less necessary. There's little justification to single out this piece from the rest of the acreage designated as open space. Any and all subdivision actions should maintain a total of 10% open space acreage within Phase 1 subdivision as was originally designed. Well, even as originally designed, there's more than 10% open space in there. That's parcels 1 and parcels 2. It exceeded that requirement. Her response is that these statements are misleading for a number of reasons. First, the statement ignores the fact that the Commission made several changes to heritage subdivision and subsequent re-subdivisions and lot line revisions, as is your right to do so, meaning yours as the commission, as well as the location of open space is your right as a matter of Connecticut law to determine where that goes. Additionally, none of the parcels were ever formally dedicated as open space as required by Connecticut General Statute 47-5. In order for deed restriction, in order for the deed restriction or covenant to be in full force or effect, the originally considered open space areas were not buffer zones as stated to minimize stormwater runoff. Ultimately, they were abandoned. So in the original application, stormwater runoff and buffers were all dealt with through the design of the project. Those parcels, we noted, and that we beat that one, is they've been abandoned. The letter next states that it recommends that the Planning Commission more clearly define the designation of open space or its equivalent in its policies and regulations. If the town's lands are so designated in planning documents and on the town maps, but have no lasting legal status, this status can be subsequently changed at the whim of the landowners. Well, this is not at the whim of the landowners, that's clear, but I understand what they're saying. But that's something that doesn't apply to this application, that's saying going forward. And the idea that they're positing there is, we saw this as an issue, the neighbors see this as an issue, got to be some way to make sure that this is clarified in the future, that it's clear exactly what happened. I think we presented tonight the clarity that you need in order to make a favorable decision. There's a claim from the CNR that the fragmentation or division or loss of this open space is going to exacerbate the situation. You know, again, nothing could be further from the truth. This project started out as 2 phases with over 150 lots, and now we're down, and essentially almost the reverse has happened. Almost all of this property went into open space, and the number of housing units was reduced by almost 60% or more. With regard to their comment that the Conservation Commission concurs with the statement by Attorney Carey, I think I've addressed that in my memo. Attorney Carey had not looked at the 1988 regulations, and he admits that, and I understand that. I mean, it happens. If he had, he would have seen the 3 requirements, 3 possible ways for this in order to be open space, and none of those were either exercised or met. So I think at this point in time, I've concluded for the moment. I'd just like to be able to have a moment to respond to any of the members of the public who might speak. But I think we've demonstrated unequivocally that this property was never actually open space. It was just undeveloped land. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, call our first public person to come up.
I promise I won't be as eloquent or long. It's past my bedtime, as you can tell with my gray hair. But just a couple of points that popped. Oh, John Murch, 8 Meadowlark Lane.
Your name and address, please.
Yep, John Murch, 8 Meadowlark Lane. Yep. Couple things I think that summarized for me why we've been here is that there's a gray area of this is an odd-shaped lot and space, public open space. And what you eloquently brought up, which is the expectation that was developed with all our neighbors over close to 40 years, is, you know, it's been written in places that this is open space and talked about and, you know, sold as open spaces. So I guess, you know, the beauty of a democracy is we have a zoning board, and you have the ultimate choice of what information, and you can take any information to make your decision. So we have the legalese, and I think what I would ask the board to do is just walk up and let's go up to a higher level and look down at this. We have a community of multiple families, toddlers, elderly, young, you know, up and coming families in the area. And we have this odd piece of property that has everybody concerned. And I guess, one of our concerns is, we had our roof redone about a year ago. Even the roofer came out and said, why do you have all these, this is private property on your ledge, your hill? And it just got us concerned that, what is going on with, he noticed the multiple yellow signs, do not bypass or trespass or whatever. So it's just this odd spittoon of a wet, ledgy, possible, maybe we're going to do some dynamiting, maybe not. Yeah, there's a gray area that this is an odd piece. Yeah, this was written all over the place. This was open space. So let's go past the legalese and look down at this from I dare to say, a moral way. We have a community that lives in the area. We have, at large, a vibrant community. And this has been a strong expectation, if not a promise or written down in a legal way, but this has been a community expectation for near 40 years. So just on a moral perspective, and I'll close it up right here, do we want to continue to provide and support communities throughout East Lyme like ours? Or do we want to give, now that prices are high and land is worth a lot and we can squeeze out a house in every little platoon of land in the town, do we want one individual to be a profiteer and disturb all of this that we've had going for so long? So I just ask for your viewpoint from 20,000 feet looking down through a new lens. We've had 2 hours of legalese, but I think there's other aspects and other pieces we can look through at this situation. And I thank you for listening to me, but I need to go to bed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Lydie, A. Meadowlark Lane.
Could you just spell your name for me?
Lydie, first name L-I, last name D-I. A. Meadowlark. So there's technical terms we heard for 2 hours, but there's also common sense. Like John said, this area, there's a lot of little kids, senior citizens, veterans. So one of the gentlemen mentioned it will be minimal disruption for the neighborhood, but we see a lot of houses being built. It's huge disruption for the neighborhood. We saw in the Goldfinch, the house has been building for 3 years, so it's like a construction site. It's a huge disruption for the neighborhood. So me and my neighbors are super concerned about building this house. So we'd like to ask you to make moral decisions, like John was saying. And also, we heard that the land trust actually very proud of preserving land. So why don't we just preserve this piece of land as conservation land instead of building more and more and setting bad examples in the neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just identify yourself on the record.
Hello, Michelle Maitland, 6 Acorn Drive. And I don't know if I should say.
I would note for that.
Yeah, I would know. I'm an alternate on the Planning Commission. I was reassured by the engineer's sign-off. I'm a member, I'm an employee of Town of Groton Public Works, and I'm an MS4 facilitator, so for doing environmental compliance. So I am familiar with the engineering staff here in East Lyme, and I respect them greatly. And so very appreciative of the fact that they signed off, and the assertion that you did, that the plan complies with the 2024 guidance. And I also appreciate the incorporation of rain gardens on the site, so that's exciting. But respectfully, for those who don't know, part of the purpose of a stormwater management plan is to have a simple collection of information from all disparate sources all over the place into one spot where you can just look at all the stormwater impacts. And it's both for reference, but it's also for maintenance and a guidance going forward in perpetuity. And so, Attorney Garrity, you said that you demonstrated to the satisfaction of the 3 points at the that you said at the beginning were the condition by which you would get the waiver, like you have to demonstrate the 3 points. And you said you did demonstrate that, but is the evidence of that simply the town engineers signing off on the plan?
No, the evidence is the documentation that Mr. May prepared. He probably
It's actually a little more, you gotta demonstrate that you have a reduction in peak runoff with the things. So it's basically a mini report.
Well, that's what I was, isn't that, I feel like from my understanding.
It's such a small area.
Hold on,
Can you
Tim.
come up?
Yeah,
Oh.
have them go back and forth.
Well, just,
On the chart.
yeah, no, I'll just finish quickly. I'll just,
With questions going back
oh.
and forth. I just-
So I'll just finish quickly that, that to me, the evidence that, what I review stormwater management plans as part of my job. And so the evidence that I see that would demonstrate the evidence would be something that would be in the stormwater management plan. And considering all the money that is spent on this entire episode, like, it just seems like have a stormwater management plan anyway. Just for the maintenance, so that the homeowner knows how to maintain their rain garden, that people can understand the standards of maintaining a rain garden and the other standards. And I'm saying that also, and then my other question was also just, must planning grant the waiver? Because it sounded like you were saying it's like kind of a courtesy that you're asking for the waiver. So must this party grant the waiver? So that's it. Thanks.
Gary, do we want to have someone try to answer?
We have the questions there. Mr. Garrity will probably has noted them, right? We can continue on with public comment, and then we'll just come back and we'll go back to the applicant and let them answer the public comment.
My name is Ron Rochelle. I live on Middle Rock Lane. The one question I have is, the drawings here shows where the houses are going to be built or could be built. It doesn't show anything behind my house. Is there going to be a house built back there?
Show you where your house is on the plan.
I go back here.
Well, there's a street here.
Well, yeah, it's right here. What about?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The house is proposed for the area down the, I'm looking for the north arrow on here.
There's supposed to be a house there?
Northwest, right. If I can- hold on.
You talked about the, where?
This is the lot. That's where the proposed house is. I'm assuming that's your house?
Yes. Over.
Right, so you're at this house is gonna be at 96, so your house, there's 100, nope. That's, the ledge is 113 feet behind that, and 114 over there.
Over here.
Yeah.
So,
So this is the area of the proposed house, because everything else is ledge in there, so they're gonna, anybody in their right mind is gonna wanna avoid that, yeah.
Just for the record, maybe we can show the commission where his house is located relative.
His house is up in the upper left-hand corner or northwest corner of the, on the east side of Cedar Brook, so it's to the rear of our parcel, and that's what we're talking about, where the proposed house is, next to number 96.
Thank you.
Just a clarification, Jeff Torrance, 197 Upper Patagonia Road. The land trust property, the clerk comments about this irregular piece of property. And the regular portion of the orange, which is in the rear of most of the houses on Meadowlark Lane. And that orange area is entirely property that's owned by the East Lyme Land Trust. It's only the small piece out in front on the Cedarbrook Lane road frontage that's the subject of this application. So all of that, those small areas and that surround it in orange is the open space that's in conservation land that's owned by the land trust.
Thank you. All right, Gary, did we want to do we have anybody else from the public?
Joshua Caskey, 1 Grooms Way, East Lyme, Connecticut. I guess all I have to say is I've seen that there has been a lot more, I think, conflicts between, I guess I would say, like environmentalists and like proposed development. I value, the natural environment is very important. We are a coastal town, so we know how dangerous climate change will end up being, how it will increase runoff, how it will increase flooding, all of that. But we're also faced with a very real threat of a lack of affordable housing, and really just a lack of housing in general. And I think one of the reasons for that is that our town is primarily, it's a very, most of the town is single-family housing. And if we want to add more housing, that means that we have to take away a large piece of land to build one house. I think maybe an option to kind of reduce this conflict would be to allow more housing to be built where there's already infrastructure. For example, in Niantic or Flanders, there's already a lot of infrastructure there that could be used to support this housing. For example, instead of having to build a new road or to build, I guess, new like stormwater facilities, this housing would be able to be it would be more dense, and thus we could save a lot of this land because there's always going to be demand for housing. So by making more land available for denser housing, more of the rural areas of our town can be protected for natural land and open space. Just a thought, I guess.
Thank you.
Quick question. Name is Mindy Horner. One house is going to be built on Cedar Brook. Is that how I'm understanding it? One house. Because my property abuts all your little surveyor flags. And I want to see, just curious how that's going to impede on my property. Nothing. One house, right?
Right.
Okay. Because I've lived there prior to Heritage. And when Heritage went in, I got with my property. So just confirming, because I don't know, I got a notice in my mailbox they're going to put houses up behind your house and all that. One house.
One house.
Right? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay off my property.
Anybody else from the public? Okay. I think, Gary?
Yeah, I think that was just the one question, and I don't know if Mr. Garrity wants to speak to it, whether or not the planning commission must grant the waiver. I'll let you go first.
I think if you meet the conditions, it's hard to deny it. I don't think that it's a mandatory requirement, however. There may be, if you can articulate them, some other reasons. I don't see any based on Mr. Close's review of the property. And the work that Mr. May did in terms of demonstrating the water quality issues, the runoff issues, the velocity issues, and the like. So I think you run up into one of those situations where a court would say it's not really mandatory, but it's more probable than not that you have to grant it if there's not a valid basis to say we need a full-blown report on it. Okay. The only comment that I have, other than to commend the young man who came here and stayed through this all tonight for putting forth his position on affordable housing, which I think everybody can agree is needed, is I'm always amused when I hear people talking about somebody trying to make a profit off something that they own. I can guarantee you that if their house goes down to half of what it was when they paid for it, they're going to be dissatisfied. If their house triples, they're going to be ecstatic. But they're not going to go, gee, do I need to give something back to the guy who built it now that I made more money than I envisioned? So, it's wonderful, but everybody's entitled to it. It's a capitalist society. I mean, that's what we are. And so the argument that economics has any role in this is just simply not a legitimate argument. But and then the other is that we preserve it as open space. It's not open space. It's private property. And if somebody wants to buy it, hey, great. But that's not what people want. They want something for free. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Just, I'm going to have Mr. May just address the stormwater matter.
I just want to, and I work in several towns, like probably close to 30 towns, and they all have very, very similar things that whenever you have a smaller subdivision, or like say 3 lots or less in the case of East Lyme, they just want to make sure that you, and I'll read East Lyme, subdivision containing 3 lots or less may request waivers in accordance with Section 4 of specific Section 6-8 with the approval of the Planning Commission provided all of the following conditions are met. 1, the applicant can demonstrate that the water quality of the receiving aquifer, wetland, or watercourse is not adversely affected. In this case, it is not. And the proposed development will not cause or exacerbate downstream flooding, and that was demonstrated to the town engineer with my plan, and that's why we asked for an exemption. And it's in your regulations, it's acceptable, and we asked for it. So I don't see what the problem is. And if you look at the site plan, there are best management practices incorporated in there to resolve water quality issues in accordance with the 2023 stormwater manual.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, so Gary, I think we're going to keep this public hearing open.
That's correct. I just received from Attorney Garrity letter extension that this letter is to request an extension of time to the February 10th.
Yeah, I looked. I was going to say 30 days, but then I realized there's 31 this month. So
To continue the public hearing to February 10th, 2026. Hathaway Farm LLC, Paul Garrity. So add that to the record, and we can continue.
Do we need a motion to extend it, or?
Doesn't hurt to take one. So motion to continue.
Okay, second it?
Second, I second.
Okay. Both then? Vote on the motion to extend the public hearing till 2/10/26?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
thank you for your consideration and your time.
all right.
Thank you, guys.
So the next up is the discussion on Catbird Lane. We're going to table that, Gary.
The worst.
This is your initiation.
This is how the word proceeding, right? I know it's not.
Mr. Chair, can we need to get a 5-minute recess until we clear the room? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll take a 5-minute recess. All right, let's reconvene here.
That's great.
So Gary, this next subdivision, re-subdivision of Catbird Lane, do we need a motion to extend that to next meeting, or?
I don't, you just table discussion.
All right. So we'll table discussion for that. Next up is the Twin Valley 23 lot subdivision request for bond reduction. Gary, I think you had a recommendation there on the reduction.
Yeah, so I got some correspondence from the town attorney. Previous meeting, as a result of that last meeting, I indicated that the town engineer had recommended 70% bond reduction. So that would amount to $1,297,171, bringing the remaining balance to $555,931. The second email I got from Alex indicated that he was waiting for confirmation from Van Noort, our water and sewer utilities engineer, that the water main was all set. He put the memo together. He said, without the submission of an as-built, I'm not able to certify that the detention basins have been constructed according to the plan, so I would not release the bond for the basin until an as-built has been produced and certify that the drainage complies with the engineer of record design. I recommend only releasing $1,585,910. Parentheses here, $1,670,060 less the basins of $84,150, assuming that the water is all set. So that $1 million amount seems to be a little more than the 1.2 that I had calculated at 70. So I'm going to say let's be a little conservative there. Stick with 70%. That does leave us a little bit more money just in case we need to pay for an as-built. But that being said, the road is in, the detention basins are in, they're loamed, they're seeded, there was vegetation growing, and the area is stable. The silt fence is still installed. They've got silt sacks in the catch basins. Basically, the only thing we're waiting on is the street trees are in, are the street lights, and a final course of asphalt. So the road is complete. At which point, basically, we're recommending to the Board of Selectmen to take the road over and all the public improvements. Obviously, between now and then, we would then have a final inspection by the town engineer. Yes, the others have to provide written correspondence that it is complete.
Mr. Gage, I don't mean to interrupt, but I believe that your mic is off.
Apologies now.
So
I'm talking and then I'll
start over again. You're recommending a
So-
70% reduction
Right.
with minimal risk.
Yep, and that would, reduction of approximately $1.2 million, and we retain $555,000.
Okay.
That's ample for the as-built, and I do believe the water main is in.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the reduction in the bond?
So moved.
Second.
Vote?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Do we need the amount of the reduction noted in the?
70% reduction.
70%.
70%, okay.
So
You
you-
don't have to give exact amount, okay.
Well, I did provide that in,
In the memo.
what I just told you was that $1.2 million number.
Okay.
Okay, so 6-0 to, for a 70% bond reduction. All right, let's move on to the Upper Walnut Hill subdivision. Gary, I think we are going to table this pending the public hearing.
Yes, public hearing is scheduled for next month.
All right. Zoning referrals, application of Parker's Place, proposal for A30G zone change, site plan and coastal area management review for multifamily and affordable residential housing development on the westerly side of Park Place in East Lyme. We
It's
are,
about chickens.
this one is about, they're putting up, what, 60
Oh.
units, Gary?
Yeah, the 60 unit.
Oh, I thought,
Chicken.
so we're back with the chickens.
Chickens
again.
are next.
Oh, boy.
I know you had asked me earlier, Brian, if I had plan. I have a full-size plan here.
Okay.
To get this scanned.
Huh. Sorry.
So that's the proposal. You see there?
And where are the existing ones? Are they, can you see
So
them?
you're literally right here to the north.
Okay.
There's an area, the parking lot.
Do you want me to hold it and so you can go? Do you want me to hold it for you so you can
So, the existing units are here to the north on Park Place. There's an area here we just discussed, there's a parking area. There's actually a couple cars in this aerial photo that you can see, and some catch basins, but they were doing work at the time this was taken, but they were talking about creating an interconnection here for emergency access in the future. So those are there. It horseshoes around an existing house. Again, they're proposing 60 units and a total of 10 buildings. So the question here is whether or not this is consistent with our plan of development. I would say it's consistent with the adjacent development in the neighborhood there. I do believe that the area is zoned commercial.
Yeah.
Which I can.
Yeah, it looked like there was a business in that corner there.
This is subject to zoning, public hearing on 122?
Correct.
Okay.
Our GIS map here.
Oops, sorry about that.
Does anybody have any comments?
Where exactly is this located?
Parker,
It's
Where is that?
it's like behind the book barn.
So this is the,
Got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it, thanks.
so, I don't know if you can see kind of the zoomed out view here. I've selected the parcel in red. These are the existing buildings. I believe there's two more buildings here that do need to get constructed by Mr. Aldi for his approval. Here's Park Place, there's an existing subdivision that went in back in there. It's been there for years. And the book barn's on the corner. I believe Coffee Tile is just out front. There's a house, a single-family house, just in this little parcel here.
And they're proposing 20 units of affordable housing out of this, 30%?
30% is correct.
30% is 60, yeah, so it's 18.
About that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then of that 15% will be provided at the 80% median income, and the other 15 at 60% to meet the statute.
So did they propose what infrastructure they're going to be putting in, or is this just all going to be considered part of Parker Place? Does it need to be like a new road entirely?
Yeah, it's a separate entrance, separate development, private. It's the two private
Okay, so
owners.
this will be
They had initially proposed a boulevard style. They changed the plan since then to provide just one tile, basically, and eliminate the boulevard. There's something to do with increasing the buffer to allow for more plantings.
okay, but to be clear, these will all be Parker Place addresses. I'm assuming this will be 33 Parker Place unit, whatever, and this is not considered a new road, so we don't.
No, it won't be a town road.
Okay, so it doesn't add any infrastructure in that way to maintain for the road.
No.
Okay.
Obviously, they'll have the water main and all that.
Mhm. And this is not falling under the sewer moratorium. I'm assuming they're.
I'm assuming they have allocation, otherwise they would
Okay.
pursue.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that too. I just was curious.
I know that Mr. Bazzalia, because he is pursuing, this is his project, he did make some arguments that they had, based on the existing flows, that they were actually metering out of and measuring out of the development he purchased, or he's developed, sorry, that they actually were using less than what was
granted to them, and he was looking to take the remainder of that allocation and possibly apply it to this project. I don't know if that's what they're doing, or if they found some other workaround, or they were just granted the allocation they needed. I would have to check with Ben North just to find out, but as it pertains to us, we just got to see if this would be consistent with our plan of development.
By any chance, when they make this proposal, I see the value of the land is at $122,000 right now. Do we have any projections of how much revenue the town would take in from this development?
I don't have any of those projections.
I was just curious if that's something that we had.
And I guess I'll stand corrected, this is zoned RU 4020.
Okay.
I will note it is within the coastal management area. You'll see there's a portion there, there's the line. So they are submitting a CAM application with their zoning permit application. I do know that's in the works. Although there does not appear, based on our discussions today, that there are any coastal resources that would be adversely impacted by this development. To my understanding, according to the developer, there are no wetlands on the site. They've had a wetland, an inland soil scientist on the property to evaluate whether or not there were any wetlands. They didn't find any. I did indicate there is a pond back here. In this large area here, I know is a lot of mountain laurel, but there may be some wetlands and pockets in there. So I advise them that do the best they can to take a look. If there's any areas that are within, that are wet and are within 300 feet, they may need a wetlands permit. There's a water course here over on the Pond Cliff development, and what feeds that is also coming in off of this hill here. So there's a possibility they may need an inland wetlands permit.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's definitely under the residential development zone.
Yeah, so the current zone is
not-
RU 4020.
Okay.
So basically, it was previously zoned RU 20 and then upzoned to RU 40, and we apply the RU 40 zoning regulations to that area. I believe Mr. Pizzali is applying under the statute 8-30G for his development, and not seeking a zone change. If you were to apply just under the regulations, you'd be seeking a zone change and then a site plan approval. In this case, he just wants site plan approval, and he applies under the statute.
I mean, there's really not much that we can really do at this point.
So I think, having, looking at Village Crossing right there, and again, in the downtown and where there's existing infrastructure, as we heard the young man just before, this parcel provides and has access to that. So again, while maybe the neighborhood is not thrilled about additional units or additional traffic, I would say that it is at least at the end or the entrance of the road, so that the subdivision itself, the traffic's not going to be circulating through and past their homes. It is within walking distance to downtown. They do propose a sidewalk to West Main Street. Unfortunately, I was recommending they keep it on the same side of the road that they're on, but I think due to some sight lines, I'm not exactly sure what the rationale was, but they're now proposing a crosswalk across Park Place to connect to a sidewalk ramp on the opposite side. I'm not sure what the benefit of that is, knowing that we cannot necessarily require them to make off-site improvements. Those are the improvements that they've agreed to make. If we can have some further conversations with the developer and see if they're willing to.
I mean, it's definitely probably a little frustrating that the sidewalk does not really go beyond Park Place, is my understanding. I mean, that's not for them. That's not for them to develop. There's just simply a ending there, right? Like, it'll just go to the end of Park Place, and there's no continuing sidewalk beyond that.
Correct, as it stands now.
Okay. I mean, that's up to us, I suppose, if we want.
Right. I would, we, Mr. Mulholland and I have grandiose, visions that one day we would have a sidewalk to the book barn. If not out to Rocky Neck, but that's even more grandiose.
Yeah.
So my delusion is maybe someday that's reasonable, but I don't
I think so. That's a tough walk from there, so.
Yeah.
Certainly,
With that many houses, it'd be nice to have access by foot.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing we're seeing here is if we're putting in even more housing, it makes it imperative, I feel like, to have a connection to downtown. But again, that's out of the scope of this application.
Yeah.
But
I've walked that walk during the light parade. It's
Yeah, it's just
yeah,
pretty,
this,
pretty much essential, I think.
it's, the sidewalk goes down to Herster right now, I think, or just in front of
right now, the biggest issue is that bridge.
getting
Going
around.
over-
Here's the sidewalk
Heading
ends at the
against it.
school.
Yeah, it just ends in front of the school.
And we have, there was one business over here, they put sidewalk in on the south side, opposite side of the street, in the event that maybe one day we'd get
Okay.
sidewalk all
One day.
throughout. One day. So,
we're trying to find this consistent with the POCD.
yeah, so that is your charge
I mean,
this evening.
Is that your opinion, Gary? This is consistent with the POCD?
My opinion is that it's consistent with the POCD, particularly in that you've got, it's an existing residential zone. Here we are proposing residential use. You've got an existing multifamily development, and this is literally adjacent to it. It's in an area with, in close proximity to our downtown, as I would say, walking distance, and has access to the infrastructure, the water and the sewer. So it'd be hard to argue otherwise. I think that it would be inconsistent. Also looking at, the need for affordable housing. Currently, it's fitting that bill as well.
Investigation. I'm having some trouble finding the tool. Oh no, here's the GIS map. But what is the acreage? I'm just not. I don't know if I'm missing it or if I'm just too
It's
tired to see
about
it.
7 acres, 6.93.
Okay, so that's 60 units for us. 7 acres. It's like 9 units per acre, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Approximately.
Anybody have any more comments on this?
I'm going to say consistent to the objectives of Chapter 7 of the
yeah, I was gonna say
POCD.
7. It's all over 7.
Yeah.
I mean, the only issue I have is the foot transportation, but
Right.
Okay, that's,
I think it's overall consistent, in my opinion.
All right, so do we have a motion?
Can we note that there are concerns about the sidewalk situation, or?
Yeah, you can make your motion and finding, and then if whatever other comments, suggestions, recommendations you'd like to add, you're entitled to do that. Yeah.
Anybody venture a motion then?
Sure. I'd like to motion to find the application of Parker's Place LLC for a proposed General Statutes 830G zone change, which I don't believe we have to do in coastal management review, to be consistent with the East Lyme Plan of Conservation and Development, with the note that we would like to see safe foot traffic to West Main Street from the end of Park Place.
second.
Okay, take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 6-0. Motion so moved. Excellent.
Chickens.
Next one up is a municipal referral, and this is to do with the deteriorated seawall.
Leave a chicken for you.
Oh, did I
No,
miss
chickens.
one? Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Application of the East Lyme Zoning Commission to amend the East Lyme zoning regs, section 6 and 7, and 2.25.5 to allow the keeping of poultry.
So they want to include the keeping of poultry as of right uses in the R12 and R10 districts. So it's really, I guess the question is what would normally be an as of right use in a more rural area of town. Well, now they want to allow it in the denser areas as of right. I certainly have no issue if people want to keep chickens and they have 10,000 square feet and they're able to do so. The question is, do they have a substantial enough area? Is that to raise chickens? I mean, 1 chicken, 2 chickens, and they can have up to 6. So, what kind of space do I need for 6 chickens exactly? I'm not a chicken farmer, so I can't answer that for you.
Can I answer something?
if you have the,
I was a chicken, well, my parents were chicken farmers.
well, look at that, you have
And my next-
expertise.
And my next door neighbor, up until maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, I live on 29 Forest,
Okay.
so our lots are small.
Hmm.
And my next door neighbor had a dozen chickens and 2 turkeys.
I think they technically would not have been in compliance with our rules then.
Right,
So-
but
Yeah.
it didn't bother anybody. They really, actually, he got rid of the turkeys because they liked to jump on his car. But, you know, the chickens were fine. I mean, I was right next door to a dozen chickens, actually, maybe a few more than that. And when he went on vacation, I took care of the chickens.
You know,
It was not about,
they do also, you know, kind of the controls, they're saying that the minimum lot size shall require, you know, shall be 50% of the required lot size for the district, so
Confuse them, isn't that?
so
I'm not-
if I
he
interpret
was
that,
like 3/4 of an acre, whatever that,
I think, okay, 3/4, that's not bad. So I'm thinking here, if I interpret this correctly, it's meaning that you're gonna need an additional 50% of area to have these chickens. So basically, that's like, if you're in the R10, that's another 5,000 square, that's 15,000 square feet. You know, 1 acre is 43,560 square feet. Half acre is, you know, half of that, so, is that like 20,000, and he had 3/4 of an acre?
Well, doesn't this provision here say that it's
So,
not
I mean, he had
supposed
like
to be-
30,000 square feet, but it's,
he had one section that was wetlands, but,
okay.
his basic yard was probably, maybe a third of an acre.
You know, and again, it applied to the R12, right, that's 2,000 more square feet, so it's just gonna increase a little, they'll have more room, probably work out really well for those folks. You know, I mean, 6 chickens, again, that's the limit, it's not, I don't really see an issue there. My biggest concern would be manure management and best management practices, and not, you know, creating a nuisance for your neighbor.
So, go ahead.
Didn't we make a determination a couple months ago? They asked us for, zoning asked us for whether it was consistent with the POCD. Is there been any change? I know they tabled it, I guess, and then they're doing
Yeah.
more research. I don't know.
I think this is what kind of came out of all of that, like,
some
they
more
went
depth.
back to the drawing board, and this is
Right.
what they come up with. I'm
Yeah, they did not include
not
the
100%
second
certain, but I think
provision,
this is
but-
kind of a result of those discussions, yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
if I can recall the situation, because I just remember talking about this, they did kind of, and they kind of addressed some of the concerns I know I brought up about some of this, about some of the language for it. I mean, ultimately, I think that we look at it though, and it's still like who's going to go out there and measure people's chicken coops? But
We have a zoning official for that?
yeah, yeah.
Well, I think,
Mr. Mulholland's going to go out there and measure people's chicken coops.
No, he'll just send them a letter and say,
Okay.
give me an as-built.
All right.
And then they'll have to hire a surveyor to measure the chicken coop.
Okay.
well, my brother has 6 chickens on half an acre, so it's completely doable. And it is
Great.
consistent with recommendations in section 2.7, Article 9, where it says, consider adopting additional permitted agricultural uses in residential zones. They're talking about bees here, but I think this also applies.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I find
Talk
it to
about
be-
the next time. This is
I think that's what it is.
Anybody have any more comments? All right, do we have a motion to find this zoning referral consistent with the POCD?
so moved.
Second.
All right, take a vote. All in favor? Aye. 6-0, Gary. Poultry is alive and well in East Lyme. Okay, we've got one more. And this is the application of the Town of East Lyme for coastal area management site plan review to replace the longstanding deteriorated seawall for protection of McCook's Point Beach Park vehicle parking area and to restore the site to its pre-disturbed condition. This wall failed, I don't know, it was a year or two ago. So, this seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think in order to, you know, preserve the parking lot,
Yeah.
something we have to do. Unfortunately, you have to harden the shoreline, but it kind of, with
So-
the infrastructure we have in place, we want to protect it.
Does anybody have any comments on this one? All right, can we get a motion to approve this referral?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right. Vote, all in favor?
Aye.
6-0, Gary. The last two items we're going to table to February, old and new business. And we have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Aye.
Vote, all in favor?
Aye.
6-0 there, too.
Freedom.
Yay.